Hey everybody, Phil Easy here, back in the garden. A little bit warmer today, still got a lot of snow. Wanted to do another The Garden Side chat. Today I wanted to continue our theme of garden planning. I thought I would talk about why bother growing your own seeds. It's a question I've wrestled with actually for a bunch of years. Which seeds to grow? Do you want to grow seeds? Why would you want to grow seeds? So thanks for checking me out today. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, the notification bell, smash the thumbs up. Let's get started. So when it comes to why bother buying seeds and growing plants from seeds, it's a good question. For me, there's a bunch of reasons why I do it with certain plants. One of them is it's just really fun for me to start something, a seed, dry, put it in the ground, water it, take care of it, have it sprout, have it grow, have it finish its growth cycle, produce food, berries, or beauty, whatever you're going for. And having seen that from the start all the way through to the end, there's something very satisfying for me personally in doing that process. Now, that won't be the same for everyone. That might not be why you'd want to do seeds. Another reason why seeds is a good idea for certain vegetables is the economic reason. And that's another big driver for me is the cost. So I like to grow a lot of plants. And if I was to buy each plant as a transplant from the local market, here I believe their plants will be going for in the 4-inch containers. Short little plants usually, they'll be going for about $2.50 a plant, up to maybe $5 a plant if you've got a taller one. That can get real expensive. I grow about 20 plus tomato plants, so do the math real quick. You're already at over $50 just for your tomato plants there. So it's a lot cheaper to grow from seed and put the effort and time in yourself instead of paying someone else to do it. Another reason why I like to grow from seeds is I get to control what variety I'm growing. If I was to go to the market or to the grocery store or wherever you end up getting your transplants, you're at the whim of whatever's been grown and whatever's left. If you're like me, I'm quite often late to show up to that party, and there's not a lot of selection left. And the plants that I pick are what's left, and quite often those are also the ones that aren't as healthy. Growing them yourself from the start allows you to have control over the health of the plant and the variety of the plant. You can plan the number of plants that you actually grow. I've got videos on that. And that just makes it a lot more organized and efficient. Another reason to start your own seeds is you get to control the timing. By that, I mean you will control when you start them, so you will know how long roughly they'll take to reach maturity, and you can plan and time when you start growing them for when you transplant them into the ground, and you can take best advantage of that. An example would be cool weather crops. You probably would want to start those a little bit sooner than you would with the warm weather crops, and you can time when those are coming to the size you want them to transplant them into your garden, and you won't be at the whims or what's left at the stores. When you grow your seeds yourself, you will get to harden them off yourself into your own climate from your own climate. The ones that you're buying from the stores, they may or may not have been hardened off. And by hardening off, I mean gradually exposing those plants to sun, direct sunlight, warmth, wind, temperature changes, all those things most plants won't be used to because they will have been started in an indoor environment. So you'll want to gradually expose them to that, or else you run the risk of overstressing your plants, killing your plants, decreasing the overall production. So by growing your own seeds, turning them into your seedlings, you will have control over that hardening off process and have a lot more success with the plants that you're putting in the ground. But Phil, isn't it a lot of work? A lot more work to do it that way? Yes, no, maybe. Depends on how you look at it. It's more work in the sense that you are starting your growing season earlier, and you couple months earlier, and you'll be the one managing that growth. So yes, there is more work involved that way. However, you won't be going out to the stores, driving possibly from store to store looking for all the different plants that you want to get into your garden. You also won't be having to drive back to those stores again if some of your transplants fail to take or thrive or succeed because they weren't hardened off well. So I think you end up, I don't know how much time is saved or gained or any of that. It does take effort, but it's actually not that much effort. And like I said earlier, for me, and I think for a lot of you, if you haven't done this before, you'll discover that it's a very, very enjoyable part of the growing process. So what's actually involved with growing from seeds? Well, that again depends a little bit on how far you want to take it, how deep you want to dive and jump in right away. You can go as simple as a single container with a few seeds on a windowsill and grow a little bit that way. Have some fun there. Don't expect too much to come of that. You might have some longer, laggier type plants, but it can be done. I've done that in my earlier days. Definitely did some of that with peppers, tomatoes, and you can take that all the way up to the other end of the spectrum where you have timers and fans and lights and all sorts of stuff that will also be a way of doing it, but a lot more complex, a lot more time. So really what you want to determine is how much time and effort do you want to put into the seedling plant growing aspect of your garden. For me, it's simple and easy. As you know, that's kind of where I end up falling to in the end. And so I tend to use trays. I use these trays that are really inexpensive. This is $1 or $2 from a local garden store, and they'll last me a couple seasons. There's different cell spacings, so this one happens to be a 5 by looks like 10, so 50 cells. Depending on what you're growing, you're going to want the different sizes, but they've got a nice depth. Got a hole in the bottom so the water can soak up through the bottom. I then also would have a second tray. That's what this one will sit into. I like getting a little bit more of a heavier, dutier tray because the cheap ones tend to get floppy and heavy when all your soil's been filled up with water and such. So this is though what allows me to grow the seedlings, and then I can water them technically from the bottom. So you'll need that. The other thing you're going to need to grow your seedlings is going to be medium to grow them in. You don't want to go with just soil from your garden. That's not how we want to start off the seedlings. You want something that doesn't have soil in it. It's more of a neutral type of medium or environment to grow it in. For me, what I like to use in growing is going to be the trays I showed you earlier, and then seedling mix, which is right here. What's important about your seedling mix is you want it to be soil-less, no soil in it. That way it stays light, airy, fluffy, lots of space for the roots to expand. You want it to be sterile, meaning clean, so there's no disease in it. So that's where reusing your container mixes and such, you run a bit more of a risk. So for me with my seedlings, I start fresh. I will end up with the seedling mix is what I look for when I'm getting it, and it just has consistently worked for me year after year after year. So we have seedling mix, we got our trays, you're going to want water, you're going to want to have light. Light's the other thing, so you can go as simple as setting up in a south-facing window. That works, although the results, depending on where you happen to live in the world, if you're in a really northern climate like I am, the results are mixed. You get plants that grow really long and laggy as they're reaching for that sunlight. So for me, I happen to use some full spectrum lights. Those can be the compact fluorescent lights. They now have LED lights. There's lots of different options out there to consider. You don't need a lot of them. You don't need to go expensive to start. I would recommend starting small and then go from there depending on how much you get into this if you haven't grown from seeds before. And a timer. Timer's a really good thing. It can be a small investment. They're actually not that expensive anymore. For me, a timer that I put the light on so the light will turn on and off. I set the number of hours. That will depend on what I'm growing. I'm going to be doing a video shortly on growing the onions. I'm getting those started. I'm super excited, even though it's snowy everywhere. I got to get going on it. One other thing about doing your seedlings I totally forgot is not just the trays, the soil, the water, the lights, but we need to think about the warmth. I don't know why I didn't think of that. I'm sitting out here with very cold fingertips. I wouldn't be planting my seedlings out here or have them grow in this type of a temperature. They're just not going to grow. You want to get them into a situation where you can have the temperature warm. Some people will use heating mats underneath their trays for germination. The only time I've really consistently done that, or I've wanted to do that, found good results, is with my pepper seeds. Those are some of the trickier ones I find personally to germinate, and they take quite some time, so I will use a seedling heat mat just to provide some additional warmth underneath that tray. Some people are creative. They'll put their light in a laundry room or a warm room. There's different ways of achieving that warmth, but they do need a relatively warm environment, somewhere between, I would say, Celsius, somewhere between about 17 and 22, 23, whatever there. When it comes to the timing of planting your seeds or starting your seeds to grow, that's going to depend on what you're growing and what you're putting into the garden and the climate you live in. All those factors need to be considered. For me here, I'm in a snowy cold zone. I have a fairly short growing season. With things like my smaller vegetables, I may end up just putting them in 2 to 3 weeks before I would want to plant them out my last frost date. Onions will take a little bit longer to grow, so for me, I'm starting them right now. Peppers take a bit longer than tomatoes, so peppers will be next. Then I'll do the tomatoes. There'll be a sequence depending on my environment and when I can get them in. But take a look at the back of the seed pack, or look up how long it will take for your particular vegetable to finish, and also look at when the planting out dates are if you are affected by frost. That's going to dictate, that's going to be the strongest thing that influences when you plant your seeds, is actually going to be when you can put your plants out into the garden, because you're going to not want to start those seeds too early. I've done that. I get too excited, I start too early in the season, and you end up with a lot of growth because you keep going, and I end up losing space underneath the lights, and I have to keep potting up larger and larger, and it would become a bit of a mess more than anything. So I really have to resist and hold that urge down a little bit to get everything going like right now. We're in the middle of February, so I'm going to be getting my onions going first, and I'm really trying my hardest to hold off until early March for any of the pepper plants, because I've done them earlier and they just get too big and it doesn't help me that much. So thanks for joining me, everyone. Just wanted to take you through a quick garden side chat on seeds and why you might want to consider growing from seed versus buying the seedlings from the stores. So thanks for checking me out. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, blah blah blah, the notification bell, and smash the thumbs up. Thanks again, guys. You take care. We'll see you soon. Bye.